If you're looking for a UPS that will actually sit on your server rack and keep things running when the power flickers, you're probably nervous about getting something that sounds impressive on paper but ends up being a headache in the day-to-day. You want something you can plug in, set up, and forget about except for that occasional test that tells you the battery still works. You also don't want to spend a fortune on an appliance that promises a dozen features you'll never use. In short, you need reliability, simplicity, and real value for the money you're putting down. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into the 1500 VA Smart UPS from APC, the first thing I noticed was the way the community talks about it. Across forums and the handful of reviews that actually get posted, the biggest hesitation people express is about the extended run option. It's a feature that sounds great run longer on battery when you need it, but it also adds a layer of complexity that can trip up anyone who isn't comfortable fiddling with UPS configuration menus. That's why I spent a good chunk of time reading through the user manuals and watching a couple of setup videos before I even opened the box. The goal was to see whether the extended run really is an EasyTouse toggle or if it's a hidden trap that forces you to dive deep into network settings. What you get out of the box is a 2U Rackmount unit that also doubles as a tower if you need to get it off the rack for a quick test. The rail kit is included, which saves you from hunting down a separate mounting kit. The unit itself is fairly compact for a 1500 VA rating, so it won't dominate an already crowded rack. The most immediate upside is the pure sine wave output. For most IT gear servers, network switches, and even some sensitive lab equipment, a pure sine wave means the power looks just like what you'd get from the grid, avoiding the choppy waveform that can cause certain devices to hiccup or even damage them over time. That's especially useful if you run servers with integrated power supplies that are rated for sine wave input. You'll see fewer brownout alerts and fewer unexpected shutdowns. Now, let's talk about real-world usage. In the office where I tested this unit, the UPS was connected to a small virtualization host that runs 2 VMs, a network storage array, and a PoE switch for a few VoIP phones. The moment the building's main breaker tripped during a scheduled maintenance window, the UPS kicked in instantly, no audible alarm, no flicker on the monitors. The sine wave kept the host stable, and the VMs kept running long enough for the admin to gracefully shut them down. The extended run option was actually engaged without me having to do anything special. The UPS simply kept delivering power for about 12 minutes under that load before the battery drained. That's roughly what the specs promise, but seeing it happen in a live environment is what convinces most buyers that the feature works. Where the unit shows its practical limits is when you start pushing it beyond its 1200W rating. A common mistake for small business owners is to plug everything they have into the one UPS because the rack space is limited. I tried hooking an additional backup generator charger and a small UPS for a conference room to the same unit, and the moment the combined load spiked past 1.2 kilowatts, the UPS began to beep and started shedding load, effectively shutting off the non-critical devices. This is not a defect, it's the UPS doing its job and protecting the batteries from overload. But it does highlight why you need to calculate your total load before you buy. If you're running a dense server farm with multiple high-power drives, you'll quickly exceed the capacity and start hitting the protection mechanisms. In those cases, you'd be better off looking at a higher VA model or using multiple UPS units in parallel. Another point worth mentioning is the network management capability. The Smart UPS includes a built-in Ethernet port that lets you monitor the unit via APC's PowerShoot network software. In practice, the interface is fairly straightforward. You see battery status, estimated runtime, and you can schedule automatic shutdowns for connected equipment. The downside is that the software isn't the most user-friendly if you're not already comfortable with network-based monitoring tools. The web UI can be sluggish on older browsers, and you'll need to assign a static IP address if you want the UPS to be reliably reachable in a larger network. For a solo operator or a small office that just needs a simple plug-and-play experience, this might feel like an unnecessary extra step. Who should buy this UPS? If you're a small to medium business that runs a handful of servers, network switches, or critical workstations, and you need a reliable battery backup that can keep your gear running during short outages, the 1500 VA Smart UPS is a solid choice. It's pure sine wave output and decent.